Yeah, what a day, what a morning, what an afternoon it's been. We've got most of the figures now, I think pretty much all of them, and there are so many stories to tell today. We'll get into some of the nitty-gritty in a moment, but this is a kind of big story. Look at this, a complete transformation in the political map of this country. Last time round, it was a kind of sea of red. We had that red wall that Boris Johnson built. You could walk, blue wall rather, you could walk from one side to the other on blue Conservative ground. Well, that red wall has been reclaimed by the Labour Party. And down south here, we've had the resurgent Lib Dems recovering from those devastating years after the coalition. They have had a fantastic night. It's been a great night for Ed Davey. And of course, the other story is up here in Scotland. There was one Labour MP remaining after 2019, another one in a by-election. But they've had a brilliant night, nearly 40 Labour MPs elected in Scotland. And of course, a devastating night for the SNP, almost all of that at the SNP's expense. Let's have a look at the kind of big picture in terms of the state of the parties, the winners and losers. And as expected, lots of Labour gains here and a horrific night for the Conservatives in terms of the number of seats lost. Worth saying, there are a few interesting stories in the Labour Party in terms of these losses, some of them down to the Gaza effect. We will get into that in a moment. But as I was saying, the Lib Dems, what a night. They've basically got 7 times the number of seats that they got last time in 2019 when they had 11 seats. And as you can see there, terrible for the SNP, 39 seats lost. We've used the word historic a lot today. What does that actually look like? Well, for the Conservatives, it looks like this. This is vote share, 23.7% this time round down here. How does that compare historically? We'll look at this. Here we go, down through 2010s, the 80s, the 60s, the 40s. You've actually got to go all the way back here. And I think it's as far back as we don't quite have it on this map as 1830s, when the whole system was basically reformed and the Tory party created in the way that it is now, that you get this sort of picture. So a very, very bad night for Rishi Sunak. And let's have a quick look at this. This is another way of showing this. This is in terms of kind of terrible nights for parties. How bad is it in terms of the vote share declining? Well, down 24% for the Conservatives last night. And even in the kind of terrible, the early 20th century, the collapse of the Liberals, you don't see anything like this back since 1835. So a few ways of kind of showing how historic that result was. And of course, with these sorts of results come a completely new face of the Conservative Party. And let's have a look at some of the big names that have lost their seats and who is holding on in the Conservative Party, what the future of this party might look like. This, I think, is one of the most important things. You heard Dehenna Davison mentioning it there. This is Penny Mordaunt's seat, Portsmouth North. It's been a real bellwether seat. It's gone with the winning party, and it has done exactly that this time. Labour have won that seat. The Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, he is out, a Labour gain. Johnny Mercer in Plymouth Moorview, he's out as well. A couple of interesting people holding on, though. This was expected to be a really big moment. He could have been the first Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, to lose his seat. He has managed to hold on to a resurgent Lib Dem party in Godalming and Ash. And of course, this was the party chairman accused of making a chicken run to a safer seat in Basildon and Billericay. But Rich Holden has held on with, I think, about 20 votes. I've got Tom Tugendhat here. This could be someone that could become the kind of figure for the centre, the centre of the Conservative Party. He has managed to hold on. It was a pretty safe seat in Tonbridge. And with Penny Mordaunt out, could he become a leadership contender sometime soon? Worth saying, these are cabinet ministers. We've had 10 cabinet ministers and 12 people who are 10 cabinet that have lost their seats, which is quite a lot more than the 7 back in 1997 that lost their seats. But obviously there are people who aren't in cabinet, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg that have lost their seats as well, and people like Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick that might want a go at the leadership as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Labour Party. We've talked quite a lot about vote share. This is really interesting because it gives you a sense of how kind of efficient this Labour campaign has been, because they've won loads of seats comparable with 1997. But when it comes to vote share, yes, they are ahead, but actually that gap is narrower. And this is another graph that shows that really well. If we look at this, here you go. So this is how the night kind of proceeded in terms of vote shares, the actual number of people that voted for the Labour Party. And here you go. It is quite a lot lower than in 1997 overall. And it is even lower than 2017 under Jeremy Corbyn. So that, I think, is one of the most interesting graphs to tell the story overnight as well. So not a totally straightforward picture when it comes to the Labour Party. And part of that is down to this. This is the vote share for parties that aren't the two major parties, so the Lib Dems, the Reform parties, other parties. They have had a really good night, better than any time since 1918. So that's part of the picture. Turnout also part of this as well. And I just want to focus in on one story that I haven't done yet today. And these are constituency based on their Muslim population. The further you go this way, the higher the percentage of people who are Muslim. And this has been one of the failures, I think, of the Labour Party, because you can see these seats which have gone independent. And this has been really interesting to see overnight, because Jonathan Ashworth, who, of course, was a senior shadow Labour figure, he has lost his seat in Leicester South. And that was seemed to be down to the Gaza effect. We also know in Birmingham and in Dewsbury too, and in Blackburn. These are the other independents who have got in against the Labour Party with high Muslim populations. And lastly, let's just end on this. Here you go, the swingometer. Under Tony Blair, it got to 8.8 in terms of the swing. What was it last night? Here we go. There you go. So it's actually 10.7, suggests it should be a hung parliament, but that's obviously not what happened. And as I was saying, the picture behind that is quite complex, but it is a significant swing towards the Labour Party. And whatever way you look at it, Sophie, a very good night for Keir Starmer.